Hey everyone, this is Thyworm and I want to discuss the patch notes for the latest huge, massive, giant patch 0.7.8. I have played around 40 hours of the patch and I will tell you all that is cool, new and shiny. Enjoying last Epoch content? Consider subscribing. Let's kick off with the new campaign. In Chapter 7, you almost managed to gain Herald's Blessing, and this is where Chapter 8 kicks in. It takes you throughout various places in the Divine Era where the gods are battling the sun god Raya, who is destroying the north. I won't spoil anything, but I will say that I thoroughly enjoyed the campaign, the new boss fights, which really are a step up to previous encounters, and the beautiful scenery. Level design in the campaign is once again of stunning quality, with particularly Lake Lyeth standing out in the Divine Era. It is simply quite pretty. If you pay attention to your surroundings, you'll be able to spot critters. Rats, ravens and scorpions made their way into the game to make the whole experience a bit livelier. You can watch me play the new patch live at twitch.tv/Thyworm every Monday, Thursday and Saturday 8 PM Central European Time. Any questions you may have, I will answer over there. We continue with an overhaul to the arena. The main issue with the arena was the length. Not that I have done much high-level arena, but the people who did spent around 8 hours grinding basically the same content to get to wave 1000 plus. That is why 11th hour games compressed the whole experience. From wave 150 forward, the whole thing scales 3 times as fast. This should really limit the time you spend in the arena if that is the kind of content you want to run. Another big new feature is the stash overhaul. Last Epoch borrowed ideas from Path of Exile and Diablo 3 and created their own version of stash storage, and honestly it's probably better than any of those games. You can color tabs, create categories, buy new tabs with in-game money up to a limit of 200 tabs, name the tabs and arrange the whole thing to your liking. The search functionality works as well, highlighting either items in the tabs or highlighting in the vertical view which tabs contain items with the term in the search bar. It's very convenient and I dare say the best stash system on the ARPG market. For all the newcomers to the game and those who just don't remember how damage over time applies to protections, there is the in-game game guide. It is a super useful reference if you like reading. Definitely nice to have something like this in the game, although it is questionable of course how many people actually end up reading it instead of googling it. Doesn't matter however, because it's there for those who like to use it and I am definitely amongst those people. What I like about the game guide as well, and it's a small touch but a significant one, is the fact that it contains hyperlinks that actually work. Attention to detail, and it shows dedication that this isn't just a reference, but someone actually put thought and work into this, so well done. I would like to see the ailments itself explained in more detail as well, to provide some feedback of the current situation. There are always a lot of questions about that, and figuring out how Ignite works and stacks and behaves and what impacts the damage is not easy, especially for new players. That would be useful info to add in my opinion. And if you want to discuss stuff and join a super nice community, join the Discord, my link is down below. Then we have 3 new skills, and boy are these some fun skills, starting with the absolute top skill of the bunch, Death Seal. Now I'll make a guide about this because I've played it a lot so far, but the TLDR here is that Death Seal removes ward, locks your current health and then offers all sorts of stuff to happen while you are sealed. You can make waves of necrotic damage appear, you can make hungering souls, you can do all sorts of crazy stuff and it is super fun. I went low life on this, it's Glass Cannon 2.0 and the skill is now a Death Wish, but it's extremely satisfying to melt all the enemies until someone hits you. Spirit Plague is a spreading necrotic damage over time debuff that starts out slow but gets powerful in the late game once you start stacking necrotic damage and damage over time. It can really take over an entire zone, and while leveling, this skill is extremely smooth to use. Enemies die off screen, you get a bunch of XP and you can just keep walking. It has way more interactions than I'm mentioning here, but once again dear viewers, build guides are coming up. Finally, Ice Barrage, which I've played for a few hours as well. It used to be a channeling skill without skill tree and now it is a cast spell including a skill tree. It is basically a vertical avalanche, it looks really cool, it's not really easy to control and get working properly, and it offers options for utility and damage. What really stands out to me in the new skills is their design. These skills are much more interesting than some of the ones that were designed earlier. The trees are bigger too, there are way more viable options, and skills like Death Seal I already can see working in many builds. Reimer, one of the QA testers, assured me this was hell to test, and I can see why, because the interactions in the skill tree alone are numerous, let alone synergies with other skills. Apart from minor bugs to be fixed soon, it all works. A huge compliment to the skill designers here. On to the passive system, which received plenty of changes. Before the patch, your base class had 20 points available, now it is 30. I've looked into the new passive system, and while some nodes have been simply moved, a lot of new ones have been added, which address particular issues the class had. Mana on the Sentinel, for example, is now gained by getting the Time of Faith passive node. Freeze Mage can be achieved by simply speccing into a passive in the base tree as well. Passives have a much bigger impact now, which is really nice to see. I'm just naming a few here to give you an impression of the types of changes that were made, but there are pages upon pages of changes in the passives. Everything got shuffled around, stuff got deleted, stuff got added, skills unlocked at different times. It is all completely overhauled. I like the new changes, the new nodes are interesting and very useful, and overall the passive system feels a lot more impactful and leaving you with meaningful choices to make rather than always stacking the same nodes for a Lich or Necromancer. There's more synergy between passives, skills and skill trees as well, which adds to build creativity, which is always a good thing. We move towards skills, another area completely refreshed. Channeled mana skills have now a mana cost per second, and during channeling you do not regen mana anymore. This is basically a nerf, targeted perhaps towards skills like Warpath, which you can't cast infinitely anymore. However, it also leaves all other channeled skills in a bad place. And it's not like people were massively using channeled skills. No one was, because they are very weak and this isn't helping. This change results in you channeling a skill, being out of mana, and now you're locked in place with no other options. Skill experience changed as well, because the XP gain changed, which results in 3 things. 1. Skills take longer to reach level 20 for the first time. 2. Respecking an ability to level 20 is faster than before once you are above level 80. And 3. Skills that you have started leveling later more quickly catch up to skills that you started leveling earlier. I think it is a step in the right direction. Respecking skills in endgame is now really super quick, as I got like 16 skill points after 5 waves in the arena at level 80, so that's definitely nice. What is still a bit problematic is respecking skills while leveling. The more characters I level, and I have about 40 right now that went through the campaign, the more it becomes obvious to me that respecking skills in the campaign is very tedious, and spending points in the wrong skill trees is punished hard. Respecking takes time to relevel, even with these changes, and in the meantime your damage output or utility takes a massive hit while leveling. On top of this, you only have access to a few specialized skills, so overall this really hurts. I think honestly that skill respecs for the first 50 levels should be completely free of charge, to let people try out their builds without repercussions. When this game releases, tons of new players are going to make bad investments. And yes, ladies and gents, there are really plenty of bad investments you can make for multiple reasons. You may have read the tooltip wrong. The node may not synergize or work the way you thought it did, or the node is simply bugged. In all those cases, I don't want to lose 20 to 30 minutes of progress before I get my points back. I want to instantly respecialize. I really hope 11th Hour Games takes a look at this. I see the rationale of the current system in high levels, and there I agree there should be some investment, but during the campaign, players, especially new ones, should have more freedom. Other improvements on skills are tooltip improvements, which have really been a lot better in this patch. And there is more clarity on damage conversion nodes. Conversion, a bit more of an advanced building concept, is now clearer in the tooltips. It is also in the game guide, by the way. Items are up next, and I already talked extensively about this in the previous video and gave my thoughts, link in the card. Now that I have hands-on experience with the drops for about 40 hours, I gotta say I love this new system. Gear drops are definitely targeted towards your class, which is nice. The new gear has a lot of interesting implicits, once again creating some more diversity in the itemization department, and overall characters have become a lot stronger in terms of high-level gear. All the new class-specific affixes are great as well, and super rare. Like, you don't find some of the really good ones like ever. I farmed Monolith for at least 15 hours, and I still haven't encountered all the Primalist specific ones, so you're really in for a grind on these guys. Once you have them though, they are extremely strong and can single-handedly propel a build into the DPS stratosphere. It's really that good. These affixes provide similar effects to some passive nodes, like increased duration of aspects for example, which either makes those even stronger or leaves you some room in the passives to maybe take another direction. Once again, adding layers on layers of variety in building, and it's very impressive. You can go ham and get creative here. The whole itemization change triggered changes in affixes as well. Some affixes that were previously available for all classes are now locked to certain classes. This is a good thing, however, as I explained in my previous video. One such example is minion stats, which can only roll on chests and helmets for primalists and acolytes, which makes sense. The same goes for intelligence. This helps your class-specific helmets and body armors to actually have more useful stats on them for your own class. You don't want intelligence on your 400 armor sentinel plate armor anyway. It streamlines the loot a bit, reduces RNG somewhat, and I appreciate this direction. The armor and protection affix got nerfed heavily. It used to roll on 4 base items: shields, helmets, chests and belts, and now it only rolls on shields. Very painful change. It is also a rare stat, spawns at level 55 plus, and I'm glad I have a couple in the bank still because I haven't encountered many of them. There's a new hybrid health affix, pretty cool, which gives flat and increased health. Mana regen rolls on more items, glancing blow suffix was buffed a bit, and generally you see that protective affixes have been buffed while ward affixes have been nerfed. We will get to ward, by the way. Up next are a few specific idle changes. Generally, damage over time effects, including ignite, are nerfed. In the case of poison, that's understandable. I don't get why ignite is nerfed, however. I think that it should be buffed, actually. Glancing blow on idols is buffed, which is a good thing, making you less dependent on gear. It's in line with the previous buffs to health and protections, but mostly, like 90% of the idols, actually remained the same. New uniques arrived, which is usually exciting, but in this case, not so exciting. Let's quickly evaluate this stuff and start with the good stuff. Mages get the Ashen Crown, a very cool unique that offers a bunch of stun chance and converts incoming damage to fire. It also allows Elemental Nova to be cast at the target location, which is normally achieved by spending a bunch of skill points in the Fire Nova tree. These can now be spent elsewhere. Acolytes get the Shroud of Obscurity, which is sort of an exsanguinous but really pushes bleed builds. It's not very original, right? I don't find this particularly interesting. Once I discover it though, expect me to push some bleed acolyte build on stream, that should be fun. And finally, this one puzzles me a bit, Sularon's Step. I found these and I thought, halves your chance to receive a glancing blow? Is Sarno designing uniques now? I tried them on and it's true, it cuts your glancing blow in half. So yeah, I mean, it's nice, you get a bunch of crit, but the glancing blow is problematic. I tried going Warpath and equipping a double Eliath's Signet, which actually works, so that's kinda nice. You can take 5 pieces of the Glancing Blow set, but that's even more taxing on your gear. It's a total meme, this one. So I can see this being viable in 2 situations. 1, Rogue gets a mechanic that makes Glancing Blow obsolete and then this item is amazing. 2, Glancing Blow gets a rework. Some other notable changes regarding uniques. Kulnivar's Claim gets a buff by adding flat lightning damage. Plague Bearer was nerfed because it's not a composite staff anymore, but a gate staff. A composite staff has a damage over time implicit and a gate staff doesn't, so the Plague Bearer basically lost 100% damage over time. It might still be broken, however. Urzel's Pride got nerfed for the second time. First, it used to give 2% mana regen per 100 armor, then it gave only 1% mana regen per 100 armor, and now it gives 1% mana regen per 100 lightning resistance, which is not a stat you have an abundance of as a sentinel. The nerf isn't too bad, however, because sentinels can regen mana now in the passive tree with Rive and other skills, and that works pretty well on a fast weapon. And what actually happened to the Fractured Crown now that we have the new items? Then, ladies and gents, we have to thank Ward for its service to the community, the great moments, the laughs, the good times, the protection, and the freedom to have us not worry about defensive statistics on some classes. Ward is no more. It was nerfed to the ground and mutilated so badly that it is almost unrecognizable. Ward retention was cut in half. Ward on hit was nerfed on idols. Ward gain on idols was nerfed as well. All across the board it took some punches. And this was definitely the right move. I ran around in the previous patch with around 60,000 ward in the arena and that wasn't even really a good build. Spellblades were just ward machines and there wasn't much going on apart from that. I feel the nerf is really heavy, but probably warranted, and it forces us to come up with other ward generation techniques and overall ways to defend ourselves. This is the kind of change, by the way, that as soon as last Epoch has cycles, the equivalent to seasons or leagues, you don't do this mid-cycle. Fixing this at day 3 is fine, but that is sort of the limit. If you kill a system like this in the middle of the cycle, no matter how broken it is, you will invoke the wrath of the community. I think this was good timing for a nerf with a new major patch coming in, and let's hope they keep doing this also when the game is live. I'm very confident they will. Let's talk skills, and I will give you general pointers here. Aura of Decay was buffed, with you taking less damage and enemies taking more. Avalanche was nerfed a lot. It now costs a lot more mana to cast. The non-channeling version, otherwise known as the only viable version. Remember I made a video about the Black Hole skill, explaining both the concepts of Black Hole in real life and critiquing the skill. I made some remarks on the skill node naming, and they actually changed the skill nodes based on my suggestion in the video. It is now a binary system instead of a binary star. Recognition, ladies and gents. Feels good. And really cool that a suggestion like mine makes it into the game. Bone Golem got buffed by condensing passives, allowing you to basically spend points in a more effective way. Disintegrate got buffed. It is cheaper and does more damage, but it is still channeled, which is inherently bad now for 2 reasons. 1, it locks you in place. 2, you don't regen mana anymore. Eterra's Blessing node, Triage, now automatically targets the ally with the lowest health percentage instead of the lowest health value, which is nice because that's the minion in need of healing usually. Flame Ward came crashing down with Ward, nerfed to the ground. It has a bigger cooldown. You can't gain ward over time anymore, and the whole ward aspect of it is hit hard. The damage part did receive buff. Overall, the devs basically wanted this skill to not be autocasted anymore, and they succeeded. I largely agree with the nerfs as well. You should now use it reactively or proactively before the big hits come in. The main issue you will now face as a mage is that investing in ward isn't worth it just for this skill, because the burst of ward is simply not enough in the arena, for example. Your defenses now have to include other stuff as well, but that spreads your build thin, and that is a problem. I solved it partially using a few other techniques, but it doesn't feel great. Not because I missed a ward, but because my defenses are now all over the place. I need protections, I need other stuff, and it puts a heavy tax on the gear all of a sudden. Let's evaluate in a few weeks how bad all of this really is. Frenzy Totem was buffed, and you now also take increased damage. Very interesting. Hungering Soul's initial hit damage was nerfed in terms of added damage effectiveness, and its damage over time component got buffed. This basically means that necrotic damage scales a lot better with the dot rather than with the initial hit. Meteor got a big overhaul as well, but I haven't really played it. I do have a character with the skill, so at some point I will cover this in a build guide. Rive has a new skill tree layout, and one of the things I really liked was the new spot of the Forged Weapons node. It is much more accessible. Should be fun for Forgeguard, because Rive also restores mana on the passive tree. Shatter Strike got reworked. Cold Steel grants more crit multiplier. Icy Flow grants less mana efficiency, but it does give you ward. Solidify freeze rate got buffed, and Whiteout is now more expensive. Soul Feast got nerfed because it has a limit on how many targets it applies to. It used to be infinite and therefore a sort of infinite source of ward, but not anymore because now it is 10. The skill does more damage, but as a ward generator it took a heavy hit. Skeleton Mages are buffed as more stats are multiplicative. Some stuff got fixed and they crit more. Overall should be pretty strong. Void Rifts, a common passive node in the Void Knight, got buffed. The base damage is 3 times higher and scaling applies at 50% increased effectiveness. It might actually do something now when you stack void damage and damage over time. Volcanic Orb got buffed, especially the cold version. More damage, more freeze. Warpath received a significant buff because it's cheaper, there's hardly any startup mana cost, and you could build it in such a way that it drains no mana from channeling. Base damage got buffed as well, but that didn't make it into the patch notes. Poison got nerfed, the stack now only applies 7% increased damage. It's probably still broken because apart from this there are not many other significant poisoned nerfs if you're not using the Plague Bearer. Fire Aura damage is increased by 20%, and Veil Spirits, you can get those by equipping the unique chest Veil Root and cast physical spells, are buffed as well. They're dealing 30% more damage now. which is still not a reason to wear that chest piece, by the way. Up next is sound, which deserves a special mention. I've been critical about sound design before, about the mixing, the sound effects and the music. In most cases, significant improvements have been made. Music still plays at awkward times, but the music in Chapter 8 is truly amazing and super atmospheric. It fits the scenery, there's battle music during boss fights, it's really well done. Even more impressive are the overall sound effects of the monsters, the environment and the critters. Your first time encountering a siege golem is a moment to remember. You hear the clanking metal, the steam, the cannons loading, it's very well done. Ogres gruntle as they notice you and go down. The sirens scream in this high-pitched sound. It's kind of annoying, but it fits sirens perfectly. Huge compliment to the sound guy, he did a superb job in the new chapter. Animations were done for the mage and it looks very nice. No complaints here. The marrow shard skill I absolutely love. It really lashes the ribs out of your body with a new animation and sends them towards your enemies. It looks a lot better than before, where it was just a single straight line. This sort of attention to detail once more may go unnoticed by many, but it is surely a step up. The user interface looks gorgeous these days. It's a lot cleaner, sharper, more aesthetically pleasing, easier on the eyes, and you're looking at UIs a fair bit in action RPGs, so it's actually relevant to make these things pretty. You can now also rebind the mouse wheel scroll directions to actions, for example to move your character, if you're into that sort of thing. And now some random changes that I found were interesting. Shrine buffs now last 50% longer, which is nice. I also noticed other changes in shrines. For example, the Ice Beetle Shrine now summons 2 of them. The Mars Beetle Queens were nerfed in terms of damage and health. The Wangari Patriarch, the dude that ran away half the time, doesn't do that anymore. Kinda nice, as now you don't have to play hide and seek to complete your monolith run. There were several optimization improvements made, but I still have issues. It gets better over time, sure, but it also still got a long way to go. A stable 60 frames per second during endgame is not easy to achieve on my PC, which is a really powerful machine. Plenty of effects cause frame drops. My fight with the Architect in Act 8 was completely bugged and I had to fight her at 4 frames per second. I crashed a few times, the desktop as well. This is going to be different for everyone, but as a general remark, optimization simply is not on par with other games just yet, and if I have to name my biggest issue with Last Epoch in its current state, it is probably this one. And to finish, Lightning Blast doesn't crash the game anymore, which is super nice. This patch is basically everything that we hoped for and more. It is absolutely amazing, and once again guys, if you want to dive into a game like Last Epoch, now is an excellent time, because everybody is basically once again starting from scratch. It also means we're done, ladies and gents, with this patch notes breakdown. I want to thank you for watching guys. Thanks for all the support, both here and on Twitch. See you soon. Bye bye.